1. Hello, how are we all today? Good, bad, awesome? I apologize for my sudden disappearing act. I have received a few messages asking if I'm dead, and I'm happy to inform you that I am not, in fact, a corpse. Yet. Life has been crazy as of late, which I will elaborate on further at the end of this story. Italian food is amazing, and if you don't agree, you can fight me. I will have no one diss pizza or chicken parm while I am a living and breathing boy. However, my love for the food can only allow me to deal with someone's antics for so long, before it suddenly doesn't become worth it anymore. In my little town there is a bar, owned and run by the same Italian family for generations, that has, in my opinion, the best Italian food this side of Sicily. The owners are two lovely old sisters who inherited it from their father and mother, and they do a beautiful job of running the staple of our community. And then there's Gangsterbeard, the nephew of one of the sisters. GB is obsessed with anything to do with Italian culture, including the shadier side of it, such as the infamous Al Capone. GB worshipped the gangster to the point of dressing like him. 3-piece Italian striped suit, spot-shined shoes, fedora, long trench coat, slicked back greasy hair, and an insufferable attempt at sounding like a character from a Bugsy Malone picture, with the "forget about it" and the "sleeping with the fishes." Now, this didn't become a problem until GP's aunt decided he should take a more hands-on approach in the family business, causing the gangster wannabe to frequently be seen at the establishment, acting like a wise guy, holding large cigars in his teeth, never smoking, holding a glass of bourbon, never drinking it, and belting out Frank Sinatra whenever he had the chance, which was often. Spooky and I had our first dinner date there as an actual couple, and many, many dinners and parties there growing up, so it's a staple in our lives. But Christ on a cracker, was it getting hard to stomach GB's antics. One night was where he crossed the line. Spooky had just been promoted to manager at McDonald's, and I took her out to our favorite little Italian joint to celebrate, praying to the Lord on high in heaven that GB had decided to take the night off. Apparently the line was busy upstairs, so my prayers went unanswered, as there he was, in all his glory. Tall, portly fella in his mid-30s, suit that didn't quite fit, hat that was too small, brown cigar between his yellow teeth, and the bourbon ever present in his pudgy hand. One thing. I asked for one thing tonight. Do you want to go somewhere else, babe? No, this is my favorite restaurant. I'll be fucked round and called a whore before I let some Prohibition-era jackass ruin it. Then let's have some bomb-ass chicken parm. Determinedly, Spooky and I marched forward, GB seeing us from the hostess stand and spreading his arms wide. Well, well, look who it is. Irish and his charming gal. How lovely. Table for 2 lovebirds. Or maybe something more private, huh? Spooky and I grit our teeth at his cringy accent and his comments. 2, please, GB, preferably in the back. I shouldn't have said that because GB got a look on his face that made my insides curl. Oh, is that the way it is? I feel ya. A little backroom dug and pull, you get me? If you could just take us to our table, that'd be grand. Her voice was dripping with malice, and GB seemed to sense this as he grabbed 2 menus and gestured broadly. But of course, dollface. You know I'm a sucker for the ladies. After we were sat, the waitress took our orders. We were sitting under the glow of a soft light, talking and enjoying our night for the most part, until GB came back and stood next to our table, loudly saying to me, You know, I never thought of Irish guys as being real guys, you get me? Sort of beta in the bedroom, you feel? Spooky and I looked at him in shock. It's bad enough someone says something like that under normal conditions, but while in a public place, surrounded by customers while he's working, was just the pinnacle of stupidity. This enraged Spooky. Been fucked by many Irishmen, have you? GB blanched, then turned red in a stunning display of color transitions any painter would envy. Of course not. I don't do none of that fruitcake shit. Spoken like a man with a few things in his closet. GB huffed angrily, which I find hilarious. Even mention something might sound gay around a homophobe and they lose their absolute shit. GB turns to Spooky. You know, dollface, Call me that again and I'll send you to meet Sinatra. Miss, Italian men are more passionate lovers. That's just proven fact. If you have, Simon Austin Firth. We turned around to see an elderly woman covered in flour and a long black apron marching towards us. GB blanched. Oh, Auntie, I was just... I have told you time and time again, don't harass the customer. And then Lisa tells me you're making rude comments to this young man and his date. You're a disgrace to me, get out of my sight! Followed by yelling in Italian as GB scuttled away, red-faced and bleary-eyed. AA sighed, looking at us with the kindest smile I've ever seen. Forgive my nephew, he's an idiot but he means well. I'll comp your meals for the trouble. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Apparently the waitress who had been serving us heard everything GB said to us, and immediately went and reported it to his aunt. Needless to say, we left a very large tip. Thank you guys for listening. As I said, I'm sorry for disappearing like that, but I have some wonderful news. As of 8 weeks ago, Spooky is pregnant. I can't tell you how happy I am, and how excited I am to welcome our child into the world. God bless all. Have a wonderful evening. 2. I met the neckbeard we'll call Kyle when I was 15 and he was 18. We had met online and it turned out that we only lived 15 minutes away from each other. Kyle liked the same bands as me and he was an all-round sweet guy. It didn't take long before we started hanging out a bit, and then it became a casual hookup. I was totally into him and we started dating. Shortly after we started dating, we were hanging out one night and I asked him about his past relationships. He told me about his first girlfriend and went on about how she broke his heart. He said that he missed her at times. He said that he's moved on though and that it didn't hurt that I was pretty. I asked him if his ex was pretty. He said no, she was beautiful. Not gonna lie, my ego was a little hurt. Shortly after that we lost touch. It wasn't until over a year later that I got back in touch with him by randomly coming across his Facebook page. He eventually found my message and we started hanging out again. I could tell that he really opened up to me the second time we started hanging out again. Except this time he had started smoking and dealing pot. I didn't mind, and I thought it was cool to be dating a drug dealer of sorts. We got really close, and I'll admit I fell for him. During the year we were separated, he dropped out of culinary school, moved back in with his aunts, they're lesbians, and started working at a casino nearby. I felt like he really cared about me this time around, and we spent almost every other night together. I would get off work, change at home, then sneak out of the house and he would pick me up and we would drive around or go on dates. Here's where the neckbeard comes in. His car was disgusting, like sticky cup holders, varying cigar wrappers on the floor, dirty work clothes in the back seat, stuff all over the floor. I'm a pretty understanding person, but it was always like that. If we went to the movies, we stopped by the store and get various Asian candies, and we always had to smoke. It was a requirement for him. Fast forward to when I graduated high school. I moved out of my mom's house almost immediately and moved into a house with a friend from work and one of her friends. He was over all the time, which I didn't mind, but my roommates fucking hated him. They would complain to me about him parking in the driveway. Kyle would complain about them being bitchy towards him. They would complain about him smoking so much. Kyle would say that they were stuck up. It went on like this for a while, where both sides would complain about the other through me, but not say anything directly to each other. At some point, Kyle got kicked out of his aunt's place because they found out he was smoking. I said that he could stay with me as long as my lease allowed, basically less than 2 weeks at a time. When he wasn't at my place, he'd stay at a friend's house. As he started moving more of his stuff into my place, I noticed more telltale signs of a neckbeard. Thankfully, I had a small room, so he kept his pocket pussy and ninja throwing stars in the garage. I soon began to notice that Kyle rarely brushed his teeth or showered. I brushed it off because he worked a lot and thought maybe he just did that stuff when I wasn't paying attention. This was until my roommate brought it to my attention. She would ask me when was the last time he showered, or would complain that he was using too much toilet paper. I thought it was just her complaint because she didn't like him. But she was right. He would shower maybe twice a week and literally almost never brushed his teeth. He would wake up, run his fingers through his hair, and then go to work. And if I hadn't washed his work clothes, he'd wear the same clothes too. He never did his laundry. almost never picked up after himself in our room, and didn't even offer to either. Kyle would be extremely messy, but then get on my back if I left a plate on the nightstand overnight. On top of this, he was also irresponsible. In the maybe 4 or 5 months he was half living with me, he locked his keys in his car about 6 times. It got to the point where his locksmith would refuse to come out. One time he even called his friend to bring him his spare key 45 minutes away. Finally he moved in with his mom and he was out of my hair, but somehow it only got worse. When he moved out, he stopped driving up to see me. At this time I was working almost full-time and also going to cosmetology school full-time. Some days I would drive 120 miles and still drive to his place after work. He would give me gas money, but still. Instead of ever going out, we would just hang out in his room and smoke and then go to bed. The romance was long gone, and he was basically just my friend. We didn't even sleep in the same bed because he had a bunk bed in his room. I often slept on a mattress on the floor. When he wasn't too high to just pass out, he would put on different animes to fall asleep to, in the hopes that he'd pick one I'd like. Speaking of his room, he had one of those trippy tapestries with Rafiki on it, and a cardboard box with various ninja swords, Viking axes, and maces, more throwing stars and nunchucks. Clothes spilling out of the closet, dirty dishes and sticky cups on his desk. Change would be stuck to his desk because of how sticky it was. His desk was always covered in paraphernalia, liquor bottles and half-full soda cans. He had a kitchen trash can next to his gaming chair that was always overflowing. Bags of candy and candy wrappers would be shoved under his bed along with more clothes. When I went over, I was often too stressed to deal with it or didn't want to embarrass him. I would tidy up what I could while trying not to offend him. One day it got too much for me and I took the day off from school to clean his room, and I don't think I've ever been so disgusted in my life. His mom even thanked me for cleaning his room. I soon grew tired of it, and I fell out of love, and all the things I once tolerated I started to despise. He had this habit of chewing his nails down to the quick that bugged the ever-living shit out of me. He also had a terrible smoker's cough and would constantly hack loogies. On top of this, he also had a temper, so if I ever had a problem with someone and wanted to vent, he would turn it back on me and ask why I gave a shit in the first place. He hated my mom, my friends, my roommates. It got to the point where I didn't feel like I could talk to him about anything. I also felt like I couldn't just leave him either. Remember his first girlfriend? He told me that after she broke up with him he was hospitalized because he refused to eat after that. His mom later confirmed this to be true. If he felt like I was cheating on him, he would break down and tell me that everyone's broken up with him and that he was scared to lose me. Finally, I told him that I needed a break. I found my current boyfriend, and I spent less time with Kyle. When we hung out, he would try to kiss me and touch me when I tried to make it clear that we were just friends at that point. Later, he found out about my new boyfriend, and his only response was, "So that's why I haven't been getting laid this last month." With that, all of my feelings left, and I didn't care what happened to him after that. I felt like I was still just that girl sitting in his passenger seat being told that I was pretty, but not beautiful. 3. What is it about mixed martial arts that attracts the kinds of people who make us physically cringe so hard? It's almost like we're having a seizure. Either you have the amped-up dude bros who drink nothing but Butch Light and wear backwards caps unironically, or neckbeards who think the best chance of winning the ever-elusive milady is by learning martial arts. And hey, if it gets you out of the house and being physically active, good for you. But most of the neckbeards or dude bros I've met aren't interested in the benefits MMA has to offer, besides learning how to fuck people up. Like Kyle. Kyle was a mess from day one, and it only got worse from there. He showed up to his first day of conditioning in baggy cargo shorts, a black hoodie, and too small fedora which he proceeded to tip at all people present. Our instructor was fed up with him in the first 5 minutes of him being there. Keep in mind the martial arts Spooky and I practice is Muay Thai, very strike-centered and stamina-draining, which is why rigorous conditioning is required to keep pace with it. Our instructor, who I'll call Kim, is a Thai man who lives and breathes this martial art, and has been teaching it for 10 years, so you can imagine his irritation when some overweight white kid in cargo shorts starts trying to lecture him about his race and teaching. You know that Thai culture is significantly less advanced than, say, Japanese culture. Have you considered looking into Japanese fighting styles? I feel they are far superior than anything you've been teaching. You think that all you like, but in my class you follow my teaching. My word is law here, understood? Kim is a very kind and patient man, but even Mother Teresa would have wanted to whack Kyle at this point. But aside from his annoying arrogance and overall sour attitude, there wasn't much in the way of terrible neckbeard behavior. Until he met Spooky. Spooky had missed a couple of weeks of conditioning and training due to illness, and was ready and eager to get back into the swing of things. I'd regaled her with many a tale about dear Kyle and his cringy, holier-than-thou attitude towards fighting, and Spooky was excited to meet the man, the myth, the legend. When we got to the gym, Kim welcomed Spooky back with a warm smile, and had us and the other students, around 5 others minus Kyle, start doing warm-ups. Kyle was late as usual, since he very obviously hated warm-ups and wanted to get straight to the action, which anyone who's ever done any type of sport will tell you is a stupid thing to do. As soon as Kyle lumbered into the gym, however, he stood gaping at Spooky, who is A, the only female in the class, B, a very appealing girl to watch work out, and C, happened to be wearing leggings and a sports top which emphasized her, assets. Spooky and I were doing medicine ball drills, which for those that don't know, is passing a weighted ball around to warm up your arms and core, when I spotted Kyle ogling Spooky and pointed him out to her. Immediately, Kyle made a beeline for us. "Well, hello there. Who might you be?" His voice was raspy and he kept licking his lips audibly, which only added to the cringe. "Name's Spooky. I'm Irish's fiancé." I smiled at Kyle when Spooky emphasized the word fiancé as if daring Kyle to try her. Kyle glared at me, sniffing haughtily. "Well, that's nice, if you're into that sort of thing. I've always thought the concept of marriage to be an alien concept to those with a higher understanding of how things work." "Kyle, the only thing you have a higher understanding of is Cheetos." "Babe, that's not called for. He's obviously a Doritos kind of guy." "You talk a lot of shit, Irish. Why don't we settle this in sparring?" Spooky and I stopped our drills for a moment, to gawk at Kyle. See, he'd never so much as attempted to spar with anyone, even though our gym does open sparring regardless of skill level, as long as you sign a waiver and wear the proper safety pads. Kyle always talked shit to everyone, saying he could outclass us all no matter what we practiced. Our gym is split into 5 different classes: Muay Thai, boxing, combat conditioning, taekwondo, and jiu-jitsu. But for all of his shit talk, he never backed it up, despite numerous challenges. Now, I'm not saying I'm Bruce Lee or Jason Statham or anything, but I've been doing boxing and Muay Thai for the better part of 5 years now, and I throw myself into my training. Kyle, on the other hand, did the absolute bare minimum to even be allowed to attend the class, i.e. drills and technical training. After the initial shock, Spooky began training so hard it caught the attention of Kim, who came over and reprimanded us for standing around talking. "I wish to battle Irish." Kyle said this like we were in a life or death situation, like he was the protagonist of his own little anime, and I was the villain at the end of the first arc. You could almost hear his theme song start to play. In reality, he was an overweight, sweaty dude yelling in the middle of a gym, filled with very confused-looking people. Kim just looked at him annoyed. "Spar after class, not now. Find a partner for drills, Kyle." "I choose Spooky." "I'd rather sodomize myself with a hair straightener. Plus, I'm with my Lucky Charms here." Kyle huffed and stomped off to pester some other poor soul, and class continued unmolested by Kyle's antics. Aside from his usual complaining about everything he could think of, mainly how inferior Thai martial arts were to Japanese. Why not take a Japanese one, you ask? I haven't the foggiest idea. As class wrapped up, the mat opened up for the sparring portion. By this point I'd forgotten about Kyle's challenge and was just chilling with Spooky on the benches drinking water, when Kyle lumbered up and jabbed his finger at me. "Don't think I've forgotten about you." "Huh?" "Fight me, coward!" "Dude, come on, you." "I knew you were a bitch, McFaggot." "Alrighty then. That man's about to die today." After getting outfitted in the proper equipment, Kyle and I squared off under Kim's supervision. I was in constant motion, keeping myself limber and light on my feet, whereas Kyle stood stock still in a weird kung fu pose, one hand fully outstretched in front of himself, palm facing me, and the other arm in the air. Kim said fight, and I immediately closed the gap between us, aiming a kick square into his chest which connected solidly. With a grunt, he staggered back, and I continued the assault, hitting him square in the head with a right cross followed by a leg kick. Kyle attempted to fight back, bless his heart, but the combination of his weight and poor stamina management caused him to gas out very early. To his credit, his punches were solid and had quite a lot of power behind them. But without good form and technique, power is pretty useless. I was easily able to block, evade, and counter his strikes, and after about 5 minutes Kim called the fight, when Kyle doubled over in pain, red-faced and wheezing, sweat pouring from seemingly every orifice he had. I went over to him and patted his shoulder. "Good fight, mate, but you're never going to beat anyone just doing the bare minimum."
"Fuck you, asshole!"
I shrugged and turned to walk away, when I felt a fist connect hard with the back of my head, causing me to lurch forward, my vision swimming. Spooky yelled out in anger, as did Kim, and there was a loud thump followed by Kyle crying out in pain. Turning around, I saw Kyle sprawled on the mat, clutching his stomach with a furious Kim standing over him. "Attacking an opponent when his back is turned? Coward! No safety gear on? That is assault. Banned from here for life. Never come back." I'd never seen Kim so angry, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't furious myself. "Oh, you cowardly piece of absolute dogshit. You better get out of here while you're still able to walk," I shouted. Spooky was holding my arm tight, but her face was flushed with fury. A few of our classmates dragged Kyle out of the gym, kicking and screaming the whole way. And Kim came to make sure I was okay. "You okay? Want to call the police?" "Nah, he's just an asshole, no need to get the cops involved." That was the last time I ever saw Kyle, and I can't say I'm too heartbroken about it. 4. A Christian neckbeard. Let's call him Dave. He goes to our home group Bible study, as he has for the past 7 years. Ever since he got out of the Marines on disability. My impressions of him growing up weren't the greatest, as I watched him go after a family I'm friends with, asking out each of the 4 girls as they came of age. He is 9 years older than me. They all flat out refused him because, well, besides from having a proud neckbeard and being quite unhealthy, to describe his personality in one word, he is condescending. It's hard to get a girl to like you when you can only talk down to them. It doesn't make you look confident, buddy, it's exactly the opposite. Well, that family with all the girls left Bible study, leaving Dave as the only person in the group outside of my extended family. I was his latest victim. For about a year, he would make me uncomfortable week after week. He prides himself on being a jokester and loved to joke about me marrying him. He loved to call out to my dad, "Hey, I'll give you $5 to take her off your hands." Or, if we were in a public space, "Next time we do this, I should just bring a white dress and a wedding contract and trick you into signing it." Ha, so hilarious. Note, we barely spoke. I am shy and don't like his overbearing personality, so I avoid him. But he always found a way to squeeze in a comment. Or he would just straight up corner me and ask me personal questions. One of his favorite flirting strategies was to start with, "How much do you weigh?" This is a touchy subject for me, but I don't want to give him any hint of emotion in my responses. He thrives off my frustration, so I would answer him straight. Then he would say, "See, you're not that heavy," or, "Oh really? Well, you look great anyway. You're a beautiful young woman." Sometimes he would call my little brother over and ask him to do things like pick me up or tickle me. My brother wouldn't because he knew it was weird for Dave to ask that of him. But he also just hates Dave bossing him around. One time after one of these compliments he said, "You're so tiny, I bet I could wrap my hand around your arm." He tried to, and wasn't even close. That was a little awkward, but not near as awkward as him kicking me in the butt every time I happened to be standing in front of him. Even though it never got the rise out of me that he wanted, I felt helpless in standing up for myself because he did things in such a way that he could always defend himself by saying that I was taking things too seriously. He was just messing around. So months and months went by and he pushed the boundaries inch by inch. I started having anxiety attacks before and after Bible study, and I would always leave the moment they were over. But often he would try to follow me out to my car, Once I was trapped outside because I rode with my parents, and when I got in the car to wait for them, he got in the car with me before I could lock the doors. I immediately jumped out, but not wanting to be rude, I stood there and talked with him from outside our car. Around this time, we started letting him bring the lesson once a month. Guess his first topic: sexual purity. Everyone else in the Bible study is in their 70s except for my parents, so he singled me and my bro out the whole time. It was unbelievably awkward. He used lots of slang and was quite, shall we say, down-to-earth about it. It was very odd. One reason it was so hard for me to be upfront with him was because not all our interactions were negative. For example, I deeply wanted to go skydiving for my 19th birthday, and he was the only person I knew who would do it, so we went together. And one Valentine's Day I mentioned to my brother how my classmate and I shook hands with each other, so we could say we had a Valentine that year. He overheard and asked me out on a friendly date. It was the first time he had ever been upfront about anything, and I thought I would enjoy myself, so I said yes. He was polite on the date, and we had a decent dinner and then played laser tag. I made it clear at the end that I wouldn't go out with him alone again, but that I wouldn't mind hanging out with him in a group setting. Things mellowed for a little while after that. I almost got the idea that he had taken the hint. Well, I was wrong. He has no ability whatsoever to read social cues, and the only way to stop him would be to be straight up rude. He's not the only person like this I've had to deal with, and those relationships didn't end well. Goodness, I hate drama. So, seeing as I didn't think confrontation was the best route, he literally loves it when I get mad because I'm a small person, and he thinks it's cute and can't take it seriously. I turned to some other members of the Bible study, aka my grandmas. They were totally on my side. I hadn't really expected that. I thought they would be like my parents and tell me it wasn't a big deal and that I should just brush it under the rug. They became my anti-wing women. It was actually kind of fun. One time he had parked behind me in the driveway so I couldn't leave. He came up to my door and tried to open it. Luckily I had learned my lesson and locked them beforehand. After I cracked my window to let him talk to me, my grandma saw this and called to me. "You left your muffin tin in here." "Oh, you're right," I said, complete BS, squeezed past him, and hid in the house until he left. My grandma and I had a good laugh. I still have issues with him to this day. But now that I have the support of my family to distract him in conversation, etc., things are going much more smoothly. I also have a wonderful boyfriend now, and that is one reason he has backed off. So at least he has some semblance of moral sense. My boyfriend is returning from college for the summer, and he will probably start coming to Bible study every once in a while, so I may post an update depending on how that goes. 5. An olden tale of yore. Before the beards had the infamous name of the neck. Before the disturbed, depraved neckbeard plague swept across the non-existent land of miladies needing to be saved. As Hellfreezer's ominous, heated warning echoed in my head, I had a pivotal moment of clarity. They were among us. Not yet the evolved species of full-blubbered and full-neck-maned beasts of the present day, but as we all know and wisely comprehend, it is the beard on the inside that counts. This reminded me of this time my cousin and I and a couple of other guys played D&D with one of my cousin's friends, who was a classy cute girl. Everyone knew she was in a committed relationship built on an unshakable foundation of mutual trust, love, and a bond that was built on genuine merit. That being said, everyone respected this, and she and everyone else there were there to play D&D. She was there as an equal player to add the increased fun that comes from more people to adventure with. But this one guy who was an acquaintance more than anything spent the whole day whispering and trying to flirt, as well as get her to agree to leave later on back to his place. The woman declined and refused every vocal offer, and instantly shut down any whispering she did not want to have. Now this made the game and overall vibe awkward, and honestly made the game feel stale and drained of any natural immersion. At some point he whispered something that I guess was more rude and over the line. And this after the relentless, sleazy, and scumbag barrage of distasteful rot in his every word spoken to her until then. She raised her voice slightly, and with a jolt of agitation, "Stop!" That's when the room froze with ice-cold silence, as our eyes in a frigid and hollow stare locked in on him. 8 pairs of eyes from around the table transfixed on the vile rat humanoid. Not in the D&D roleplay, oh no, but the degenerate filth-smeared sack of festering human meat on 2 legs. Then she nervously reassured and got the wheel turning by saying, whose dice roll was it? After a few seconds we proceeded. Though I did not know back then of the neckbeard disease and the affliction that consumes its host. Looking back, he was a neckbeard in his purest form, though I had dismissed that confirmation due to him being clean, and besides a delusional look that read, "Yeah, I'm classy, but cool, and have an above-average grade, and I'm top of every one of my classes." He wasn't grease-soaked or fedora-wielding, nor did he have any facial hair. That's when I thought of the guy recently and ran it through my head, and something clicked like a hammer striking an anvil. And I heard Hellfreezer's voice in my head, imparting the wise life lesson of warning. But everyone knows, it's the beard on the inside that counts. She got a lift to her boyfriend's that night after the game, after my cousin's childhood friend ensured that she would not have to take the bus with the vile, filthy chameleon beard, and his wretched cesspool of a mouth and tongue. That's the first time I've put that story into written form. Hope you got even a shred of enjoyment from the tale. Cheers, my brethren and sisterin, be well, in health and prosperity in tomorrow's doorway. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 32, I think. I kinda don't care at this point. I'm very melty today again. Yes, 32, there we go, excellent. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, this one's gonna be brief because, I need to get, we're up to 2 fans now. If it gets any hotter, I mean, it's been hotter, so I might actually pick up another pedestal fan. Not the super fancy remote controlled one I've got, but if I can just have maybe 2 at the corners of the rooms, just the cheaper ones because they work fine. Although I do like my super fancy Bionaire one. Prime Day's coming up. I wonder if I might find that on sale. Tempting. But yeah, Hellfreezer needs to cool down. Hell needs to freeze. Okay, so with that, I just want to thank you all for the lovely feedback you've been leaving on recent videos. Thank you for being very supportive while I've been changing the upload times of the videos. And I think we're just gonna wrap it up there. I don't know if you'll be seeing me at any point over the weekend. We shall see. I was going to stream some Sherlock Holmes. I mean, I've seen plenty of videos of those games on YouTube, so I assume it's probably okay as long as I turn the music off. It should be alright. I think we can leave the dialogue, but if I turn the music off. I did contact Frogwares, but they didn't respond. But I assume it's probably okay, we'll see. Okay, anyway, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.